Everyone, I am very excited to show you this book. It's got some fluff on it from my microphone that I received as a gift from the lovely Mindy. So thank you, Mindy, for this. This was on my wish list and I thought it was a really interesting looking book. Now you can see it's called Super Realism. It's how to draw lifelike objects with colour pencils, but having had a quick look at it on someone else did a flip through of it actually, I realised that it's not really about drawing, it's more about the colouring side of things, which is obviously what I need. I don't like drawing, as well most of you may know, but the colouring is interesting. So a lot of it is, you know, here's your basic shape and off you go, and colour. So there's a lot of learning to be done. So let's have a little look. I thought I'd show it to you. I'm not going to do a demo. What I'm going to do is practice some of the different things, and then I might simplify it or use it for a video later, because I suspect by the look of this it's going to be quite hard, but we'll see. So let's open it. We've got a picture of a strawberry. Look, step by step how to do this strawberry on the inside, and wow, that's quite pink. So here it is, called Super Realism. So I was going to tell you about the paper, but it doesn't matter. We're not going to be colouring in this book. But it's quite a new book. This year it came out. Skittle Dog, who've actually sent me a few of their products before. And it's by Sarah Evans, as you can see. And here's one of the drawings from the book. So let's have a little look. So the intro talks about her, how she got started. I'm not going to read it out. Why she's chosen the subjects. There's a lot of food in here, but look at this leaf. It's gorgeous. And there's some guides, it says, as well. So we'll have a little look at what there is. As it talks about tools and materials, about different pencils. This is about coloured pencils, and there's a little bit about light fastness as well. Then it talks about oil and wax, and then water-soluble pencils. So you've got a bit of information about each. As I said, I haven't read it yet. I'm looking forward to reading it, but just so you can see what it's about, so that if you can see if you're interested. And then it talks about papers. Now this is quite useful because sometimes we print off downloads and we need the paper. Most of the time I'm working in a colouring book, but sometimes it's a download. And it talks a little bit about sizes of paper. It's got European sizes. This is an English book, a UK book. And then it talks about toned paper and watercolour paper. And now if you're using watercolour pencils, then this is what you might be looking for. Now, we have other useful tools. So we've got a paintbrush for applying solvents. It has a fixative. This is a Winsor & Newton one. I've never tried that one. It talks about pencil extenders. There's a Derwent one. I find this bit on the Derwent one really painful. Yeah, it's just me. Solvents, that's Zest It. I've got some Zest It. White gel pens, that looks like a Signo one. Rubber erasers. Pencil sharpeners. Are these both erasers? It's got the Derwent one there. Pencil sharpeners, it's got a hand crank one there. That looks like a dowel to me, but it might not be. Magic tape, interesting. And soft brushes for brushing away specks of dirt, pencil lead and things, which I have got. I use a makeup brush which someone very kindly gifted to me. It's fantastic. So this is talking about subjects and setup. So she's talking about using a photograph as a reference, which is something that I do if I want to get a realistic picture, particularly for me, because I have aphantasia and I can't visualize things in my head. There's no way I would know what it's going to look like. I could vaguely do it, but you know, with this detailing around here, I could never visualize that. So I do often use a photograph if I want something real. And it talks about using a grid if you're drawing, which isn't relevant to me, but might be relevant to you. And then it talks about drawing techniques. Talks about underpainting, so putting a starter layer down first and then building up the layers of colour. It talks about pressure blending and shading. And it talks about burnishing. So here is a before and after burnishing. You can see the colour is much darker. And then it talks about dry blending. So this is using, she says, household items, tissues, cotton buds, things like that. And then she talks about blending stumps and tortillons. I don't know how you say that. It sounds French to me. And then brushes. That's interesting. I've never used a brush. blend. Anyway, and then she talks about solvent blending. So here is a difference here between blended and not blended. You can see the difference. I find that sometimes I don't want to blend. I like seeing the paper through. It depends on the effect that I'm trying to go for on the item. And then she talks about textures and surfaces. So this is a piece of fabric that she's trying to colour. And she does here, this is a step-by-step guide on how to achieve this look. And she doesn't use a specific colour brand. She'll say using a pale colour from the palette of your reference image. So just pick your colours. And then she goes mid-tones, ultramarine blues and blah. So she talks about colours a little bit, but without referring to specific brands. And here is a polished metal tutorial. So we've got this dish. She has done the things in it, but really it's just talking about how to get this shine and things and the reflections in the metal. Plastic, we have a great little Lego minifigure here. It's talking about, again, about the shine that you get on it and how to get that sort of look, which is, look at the hair, it's amazing. Does she use, I wonder if she uses the white. No, it looks like she just leaves the paper white behind. And then glass. Glass is really tricky, but look how she's got that. That's really good. And then wood. Look at the wood. So she's actually copied the wood grain into this bowl. It's amazing. And then shadows and the highlights. So this is talking about how to identify where the shadows are and work with them. So here she's actually drawn in the shadow there. And here she started putting in some of the darker and lighter areas. Well, you don't put in the lighter areas, you know what I mean. And there, look, the finished item. You can see the shadow here, but also darker areas here and lighter areas here. And this is about choosing colours. She talks about, here's the colour wheel, she talks about cool colours, warm colours, primary, secondary, tertiary colours, colour values and tones. So here is your pure red, your red tints, so they're mixed with white, tones which are mixed with grey, and shades which are mixed with black. She talks about the difference between hue, saturation and value, tones and tints, so defines them all so you know what that means, which can be quite useful. And here she talks about colour charts, saying, you know, if you do different layers of pressure, you can get an idea of what they look like. I think that's a really good idea. Sometimes when I used to do a colour chart, I would start light and then go darker on my little swatch, but I tend not to do that anymore because I really want to see what the saturated colour looks like, and I can imagine what that is. I know I can't visualise, but I can imagine what a lighter tone would look like. And I tend to build my colour up slowly anyway on my page. So here she's talking about identifying colour and tone, which is quite interesting. So she's got here, look, this one she says being cool, this one warm, this one cool, this one warm. So she's looking, and then a cool green, a warm. I wouldn't say that was cool. I would say that, but anyway, it doesn't matter. And talking about that, and she says you can use the colour picker in Photoshop to help you. I do know there are some free apps that you can get where you can take a photograph of an object and it would and then put in your pencil brand, and it will tell you which pencils to use for that. That could be quite useful. I have one on my tablet. I don't use it very much. I tend to just know, just through years of practice, and I can just copy, and if it's not quite right, I don't really mind because I'm not always going for realism, but that might be useful to look for. Try free ones first, don't buy one to start with, you know, see how you get on with it first. Now here she's talking about using a grayscale to look at the values, so you can find light, dark, mid tones within your item. So we can see here is very light, the shadow in the center there is really dark, and these bits around are sort of more mid-tone. Now here are the various projects that she does in the book, so take you step by step through each of these items. So I'll have a quick look at one in more detail, and then I'll just show you them quickly, because it's not really fair on her if we go through them in detail, all of them, because obviously if you're interested you should be buying the book. So in the avocado, what she does to start with is she gives you some colour swatches. Now because she doesn't give you a brand and a name. You have to work that out for yourself. So A is sort of a pale pink. So if let's say I was doing this in polychromos, I would probably use a beige red, something like that for A. B is maybe a May green, maybe a cadmium yellow, lemon, something like that. C and D look like May green and earth green yellowish. Then you've got much darker green there, E. I would use like the maybe the earth green yellowish, no, the chrome green yellowish, I can't remember. Then you've got a sort of brown, you know, like a nougat. You've got a more of a sepia type, a sienna, sorry, type brown. This is dark, a burnt umber, and then you've got a more reddish, like a terracotta-y type shade. So, but what you can do is take this, take a scrap piece of paper, swatch your pencils out, or if you've got a swatch chart, just compare them and find your best matches depending on the brand of pencil you want to use. And then she says, use your light tone A for your line work. So you may not need to do that if you're using a colouring book. And then she says, lay down the base for the flesh and stone with A and F. So if you look at part 2, which this is, I'm quite far away. Purposely, I don't want you to see it too much detail because, you know, as I say, you need to buy the book if you really like it. So all of this is done in A, but some of the stone is done in F to make it a bit darker. And then in number 3, she says use the dark sage to define the outlines, because if we think about the avocado, it's the skin around the edge, and then a little bit of the zesty yellow around the edge of the which is your B colour, which is this one, and then use the sort of pale green a little bit as well to shade around the inner edge and to shadow a little bit, and then use some of the brown to start to shade your stone. There's quite a lot of steps in that one paragraph, but you can work through it bit by bit and you can see it all developing in the picture, because what she's done is that step, everything can be seen, it's not on top of each other, if you know what I mean. So step 4 is saying use mid green on top of the pale green. So at this point we're adding to this, we're going on top, so you can see the difference here. And then use the dark then we're starting to create these little lines and divots in it. And then 5 is some yellow inside here and shadows in here as well. And then the terracotta on the stone and a bit of brown to deepen the shadow area. Oh, and pimento red, which is the as well. So I guess G is her terracotta, yeah. Anyway, and then use a little bit of black brown on the edge, which is what I thought was probably burnt umber. So that is all of that one. So I think the steps are quite quick. I would want to do a little bit, take my time through them. But for me, I don't think we need more pictures though. I think we've got enough, because every time you go on top of something you've done already, we've got a new picture to show us. And we have here the glazed donut that's on the front of the book. So we've got all the different pink tones here and the photographs, all the step-by-step instructions. There's a lot more here and here. And what she tends to do here, she doesn't really use a white pen for these whiter areas. She will use an eraser to create some of them and sort of just not colour those bits. But I find often with colouring books, the paper isn't always white. So trying to leave a white area might not always work because you've got cream paper. It depends how specific you want to be. Now this could be quite useful for the Christmas time coming up, a holly leaf. So how to do that one. Look at all the colours in just one leaf. You've got blues, greens, browns, yellows, all sorts of colours. And here she starts with underpainting with pale colours and builds up. There's only a little bit there. This one's for mussels, so we're into sort of food type one. I don't think I've ever seen a picture of mussels before. Interesting exercise. A sock. Fabric's quite difficult. It's quite a different texture, so that's quite interesting. Here's a strawberry. I've coloured a lot of strawberries in my time, leaving these little white areas to look like shine, like here. You can see it better on this one. It's quite difficult I sometimes put a bit of white pen on and then it looks a bit too much, so you know, that's interesting. It looks so real, doesn't it? And we have a croissant. This doesn't look quite so real, but it's still amazing. Now this one is an espresso, so we've got our cup and drawing in the drink. Ooh. Oh, we have a box of eggs. I'm sure I've got eggs in the book, but look at the texture on the cardboard. It's amazing. And we have a pair of scissors. So here we have metal and plastic to do. I'm sure there are scissors in, what do I call it? Rooms of Wonder. I'm sure there are some scissors, and in World of Flowers. But look at those. So you've got some shine on your plastic, you've got dark and light areas on your metal. Grapes. We get grapes in quite a few different books. These look really good. And something I've noticed about these is that there are light areas along the bottom, whereas I would always only do a light area on the top. But there's a light bit along the bottom, which I think is really quite interesting. And baked beans, now if you're in America you will have no idea what these are. I always thought they were an American food, but apparently you don't know what they are. So what they are is haricot beans in a tomato sauce, and we would warm them up in a saucepan or in the microwave and then serve them on a slice of buttered toast. And it's actually a really good meal in that you get your 2 portions of veg from your tomato and your beans, you get a protein in your beans and your bread, and if you use whole grain bread and use sugar-free beans, you've got quite a good meal. And a lot of people see it as a cheap and nasty meal, but actually I think it's pretty good as long as you can get a sugar-free beans. It's quite difficult to find actually, but I tend to make my own. But I like cooking. This is an interesting one. We've got a light bulb, so we've got quite a lot of different features in this one. If I turn over to this, so we've got the glassiness, we've got the reflection of this sort of gold cap, we've got the metal in here, so there's a lot to learn from this one. And then we've got bananas. I have coloured bananas quite a few times before, and we've got the sort of green and these little brown marks. It's always hard to know exactly where to put those, so we've got guidance on that. We have a very nice looking cookie. It doesn't look that nice here, but there, look at that. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Now we have a fried egg on toast. I've got a tutorial for an egg in one of Helen Elliston's books. It'd be really interesting to sort of compare the steps. And this one, look at all the layers in the white. That's I think, I don't know how you would achieve that very overcooked white with a runny yolk. I don't know how to cook eggs very well. I can't eat them, so I don't cook them anymore. These are licorice all sorts. If you may not be aware that they are candy, like sweets. The black bit is the licorice. These are licorice flavour. They're the most, and these are, this bit is coconut in these. I don't think it is in those. They are absolutely vile, but you know, some people love them. This is an interesting one. We've got a flower, so we've got a peony, and look at the colours here. So we've got a yellowy colour, which is our centre part, and an orangey colour, but we've got a lot of pinks and reds, and then we've got these sort of purples here, but there's no, until you look here, and there you can see where all the purples are in the centre here and in all these little areas. It is absolutely beautiful. And look at this leaf, it's amazing. I've got all the browns, we've got black, so we've got a sort of warm peach colours to start with, and then sienna brown, ochres, we've got yellow oranges, mid browns, dark terracottas, dark brown, the sort of rusty reds, pimento, that's this colour, and then a blackberry for a shadow. Steel jar, so more sort of metal, really useful. See, I always do my shine just down the middle, but look, there's a little bit on the top edge there, there's a little bit on the bottom edge. It's just far more realistic than how I tend to do them. We've also got glass around here as well, and you've got a bit of reflection of something here, which is really quite tricky. Oh, and there we are at the end. We've got another very bright pink, and it says, Sarah Evans is an architect turned artist who established pencil on paper in 2017. She creates detailed pencil drawings of objects and food that have a playful kitsch flavour, producing still lifes that resemble perfectly lit photographs. Sarah sells her quirky artwork as prints and greeting cards, as well as undertaking commissions for both individuals and publications such as Observer Food Monthly. That's a newspaper, The Observer. Now in the back it has a little resource list which I found quite interesting. She recommends the pencil brands Derwent Lightfast, Derwent Coloursoft, Caran d'Ache Luminance and Faber-Castell Polychromos. It's just quite interesting. Now Luminance are obviously so expensive, but Derwents are also quite expensive. I've got a few Coloursofts. I've got some Lightfasts as well, but the Polychromos obviously got lots of those. And then she talks about papers, Daler Rowney, Strathmore and Canson, who I've never heard of. And then she has suppliers, Cass Art, who I've heard of, who I bought a copy of Enchanted Forest by Johanna Basford from Cass Art, and it was a special edition that only they had, with a great big pull-out poster of the dragon, much bigger than the one in, you know, you've got two fold-out pages. It was like a 4x4, it was huge. Now, Cowling and Wilcox, I've never heard of. Hobbycraft, obviously I have. It's a big chain. Most big towns have a Hobbycraft. And Jackson's, who are fabulous. I'm actually an affiliate for Jackson's, so I'm very biased. But they do have a place local to us and a couple in London, but mainly their mail order. But they sell a lot of open stock pencils, including Holbeins. So they are worth looking at. And they ship to America. Okay, so there is that one. So if you're interested, there will be a link in the description, so you can go and have a look. It is my affiliate link to Amazon. But I'm going to have a play with some of the tutorials in here on various things. Obviously, I won't be colouring like the exact canister or the exact glass, but I might use some of the techniques to apply to other pictures that I've got, and having a go. And then when I pick up hints and tips, I might then do a little demo for you and share it. So I'm looking forward to having a go. But thank you for watching the video, and a huge thank you to Mindy for sending it. It came beautifully wrapped in a gift bag and everything, and with a really lovely note, and I so appreciate it. So thank you so much. Thank you for watching. I hope that you have a really super day, or rest of your day, or whatever, and happy colouring.